Welcome to Imagination Fun Time. I am your host, Brandon Devine, and Merry Christmas to everybody. How are you? I hope you're all having a fantastic holiday. It is December 25th, 2023. And it is, yes, Christmas Day. I hope, like I said earlier, like I said before, I hope everyone's having a great Merry Christmas with your family. Those of you who are working today, thank you. Those who have to work a job, I have some friends who are working today. They're the real troopers of our society. I hope everyone's having a good time with their family. I hope that, the weather's not too bad wherever you might be today. I hope that you got some nice presents. I hope there's some good food. I'm going to go to a house in a little while with my mom, my stepdad, to eat with a bunch of other boomers their age. They are all a bunch of boomers, so that's going to be fun. I can't wait to hear what their opinions are on the current political climate and of the world and of certain things going on in the world. I'm sure it's going to be interesting. But you know what? That shouldn't be what today is all about. Today should be about, if you're 8 years old, today is about presents. If you're in your late teens, early 20s, today is still partially about presents to a lot of people. But today should just be about having a fun. We made it to the end of another year, relaxing, enjoying yourself. And what better way to relax on the Christmas season than by, watching TV, watching movies. I'm sure there's tons of great stuff to watch. Today there's always the classic argument is Die Hard a Christmas movie? And I don't think it counts as like a Christmas action movie. I think it is an action movie that has many elements of Christmas to it, such as the Christmas setting, the ho ho ho, now I have a machine gun sweater, all sorts of stuff. My personal favorite to watch is Home Alone. I watched those earlier this week. That was great. And so I thought about, wanting to do a Christmas podcast about a good episode of a Christmas episode of some TV show. And I thought about, I could do one of the South Park episodes. I could do one of the Simpsons episodes. But then I remembered this one that I want to talk about today. But before we get to that, let's see what's going on IMDb. Is there anything going on IMDb? I personally have had a great Christmas. Got some nice stuff. I got my friend Nikki. She sent me a South Park hat. Kyle's hat. The fluffy green hat. It's nice. It's warm. It's comfortable. Thank you. Got some cool stuff from my parents. That'll help me with an upcoming trip I'm going to be taking in a couple months. Why isn't this loading? I'm trying to pull up IMDb right now on my phone, and it's not loading. It's just giving me a bunch of gobbledy nonsense. Yeah, for some reason, I don't know why the Wi-Fi is not working. Hopefully it's working. I mean, it seems to be working on my iPad right now. It's recording. Everything seems to be recording. There we go. There we go, people. Technical difficulties on my part. None that you could see. But, that's beside the point. All right, what we got? Top news as of Christmas Day 2023 is some movie that I cannot pronounce. Let's see. Oh, it's there's a name of a movie, a Bollywood movie that I do not even want to try butchering this name, so I'm not gonna try pronouncing it. But it's an article talking about the top box office wins of the weekend, which is Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom and Wonka, and this Indian action epic. That should be fun. Let's see. What else? Tony Leung and Andy Lau reunite in The Goldfinger, reviving the Hong Kong noir genre. Epic stories are making a comeback. I am personally ashamed of myself for not really knowing all that much about Hong Kong cinema. For those of you who don't know, Hong Kong action cinema is one of the most legendary genres of action cinema, like subgenres of action cinema in the world. Supposedly some of the greatest action movies ever, are from the 70s, 80s, 90s, filmed in Hong Kong. That's where Jackie Chan got his first became world famous, is through his many amazing contributions to the industry there. And then, just recently I went to a Wu-Tang Clan concert, and basically their entire musical style, a lot of it is modeled after, Hong Kong cinema and other Asian action cinema. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, Scream 7 director Christopher Landon exits the film. Dude, this movie, they've already lost 2 of the stars, and now they lost a director. We have 6 Scream movies. We don't need a 7th Scream. The last 2 are supposedly really good. Let's end it at that. Another article about Aquaman. Dude, I don't care about Aquaman. I don't think anybody actually cares about Aquaman. I fucking hate this movie because Amber Heard's in it. But, to be honest, let's be honest, folks. It's 2023. Most fucking superhero movies have dominated the box office for literally over 20 years now. And I think a lot of people, we don't necessarily hate superhero movies as filmmakers, as fans, as the movie-going public, but we're just sick of that being all there is. There needs to be another change. But, that's beside the point. Let me talk about what this episode's about today. So, like I was saying earlier, I chose this episode called Arnold's Christmas, the very first Christmas episode of the classic Nickelodeon series, Hey Arnold. I chose this because of its very unique plot, combining both a great classic Christmas cartoon episode with also teaching children a bit about a terrible part of history for both this country and much more so, the country it took place in. So let's get to it. Arnold's Christmas it's from season 1, episode 11 of season 1. Its original air date was December 11th, 1996. I believe I was 3 years old at that point. So I didn't watch this when it aired, but I did watch it many times growing up because it aired every Christmas on Nickelodeon when I was a kid. The episode is directed by Stark Howell, Steven Saki, and Tuck Tucker. That's literally the guy's name, Tuck Tucker, who I guess later also directed the Hey Arnold movie. The episode is written by Joe Ansoblananier, who is one of the co-creators of the hit show Recess. Show Hey Arnold creator Craig Bartlett and Steve Vixkin. So the plot of the episode is it's Christmas time, and in the boarding house where Arnold lives, they are doing a classic Secret Santa draw. Everyone draws a name out of the hat, and that is who they get a gift for that Christmas. Arnold draws his neighbor, Mr. Huynh, who is a Vietnamese immigrant. And when Arnold draws his name, he realizes he doesn't really know that much about Mr. Huynh, and Mr. Huynh seems to be very upset and depressed around this time of year. So Gerald suggests that Arnold goes and talks to him and just learns more about him to be able to figure out the perfect Christmas gift to get Mr. Huynh. So Arnold does that, and in talking to Mr. Huynh, Arnold learns that Mr. Huynh is from an unnamed. They don't name it. They do not name the country in the episode, but if you know, but it's pretty obvious he is from Vietnam, and he was born and raised there, and he had a daughter. He had a young daughter there many years ago, and lived in what looked to be a very a very traditional Vietnamese village near the jungle. So, Mr. Wynn says that life was good for a while, and then a terrible war broke out in his country. And through images, it is clear that it is depicting the Vietnam War. And Mr. Wynn says that his country became very unstable, and it was not a safe place for him and his daughter anymore. And so him and his, later depicting what is historically known as the Fall of Saigon, Mr. Wynn tries to escape. Mr. Wynn and many others try to escape the city on American Army helicopters. This one helicopter is surrounded by a large crowd of Vietnamese people, and Mr. Wynn says that the helicopter only had room for one person. So Mr. Wynn held up his baby daughter, Mai, and the American soldiers took Mai with them to help her escape. And they shouted out the name of a city where they would take her and that he could come and find her. So apparently that city's name was Hillwood, which is where the show takes place. And Mr. Wynn saved money for many years to be able to move to Hillwood to try and find his daughter. And then, here he is living in the boarding house. So Arnold really wishes that he could get, the one thing he really wants to get Mr. Wynn is he wants to reunite him with his daughter for Christmas. And Gerald's telling him, dude, that's impossible. It's literally Christmas Eve. How are you going to find this girl? You have no idea what she even looks like, and she lives in this giant city. Where are you going to find her? So they end up at this big government information office, like big, I don't know, just some big government skyscraper, like government office of information or something like that. And they find a man named Mr. Bailey, who's the only one still left working on Christmas Eve. And they ask him if he can help them locate this girl. And he says that, Mr. Bailey says that he doesn't have time right now. It would take hours, even days, to be able to do a proper search for her through the databases. And, it's Christmas Eve and he just doesn't have time. And then, after he says no to the boys, Mr. Bailey gets a phone call from his wife. And Mr. Bailey is obviously very stressed because he tells his wife, no, he still has not done the Christmas shopping, but he's going to get it done and all that stuff. So Arnold and Gerald decide to try and make a deal with this guy, saying, hey, if you give us, your money, we will go out and do all your Christmas shopping, and in exchange, you help us find this girl. And Mr. Bailey says, okay, deal, but only if you get absolutely everything on the list that he wants to get for his family. So Arnold and Gerald go out, and they're shopping all over the city, and they eventually come up with every single item on the list except for one. A pair of Nancy Spallone signature snow boots, which coincidentally turns out to be the hottest item of the Christmas season. The big top seller of the Christmas season are these really cool European-looking snow boots. Which blends in with the subplot of the episode, which follows Helga, the psychotic, sociopathic girl in Arnold's class, who has a very huge crush on Arnold, a disturbingly creepy crush on Arnold, very disturbingly creepy crush on Arnold. Arnold, stay away from this girl, man, dude. She will kill you in the middle of the night and leave she will literally carve things into your body. Dude, this girl's a psycho. But anyways, that's beside the point. Sorry. Helga, apparently, all that she wants for Christmas is these snow boots, just like every other girl in the city. And then Helga, also wanting to act on her feelings for Arnold, is suggested by her friend Phoebe that she get Arnold the perfect Christmas gift to help prove her love to Arnold. So Helga is out all day shopping, just like Arnold and Gerald, but she can't seem to find a perfect gift. She goes everywhere, looks everywhere, but she can't seem to come up with anything. And then she happens to overhear Arnold and Gerald while they're out in the street somewhere, talking about their mission, and how they were just so close to possibly finding this girl, and how they couldn't get, there's no way this guy is going to help them out because they didn't get the snow boots, and they're just all bummed and depressed because they felt like they really worked hard on this and they failed. And Helga overhears everything, and then from there she goes home. When she goes home, her mother, who for some reason, this is the only episode of Hey Arnold where Helga's mother is not completely trashed and passed out drunk somewhere in the house. That's one of the saddest parts of this entire show, is that Helga's parents are just such pieces of crap, and just they're very emotionally abusive. Well, I don't know if that's the right term. They're just they're very neglectful parents. Her mother, mostly because she's a raging alcoholic, but seemingly in this episode she's not. I don't think they built her character up as that yet. I think that part was coming later. But anyway, Helga goes home, and she's feeling really bad for Arnold, and feeling wish she could help him. And her mother says, "You know what, Helga, you look depressed. You look kind of down. So I'm gonna let you open one gift tonight." And her mom gives her one of her gifts, and it turns out to be the snow boots, the popular snow boots. And she's all excited. She puts on the snow boots. She goes outside and showing off, modeling in the snow with them, and just so happy. But then she starts feeling really depressed and sad because she's like, I really wish, these are so awesome, and these are exactly what I really wanted for Christmas. But these are also the exact thing that would help Arnold, the boy that I really care for, get his amazing Christmas gift. So she's stuck with that classic dilemma of do I keep this gift for myself and have it for myself, or do I try to make somebody else happy at Christmas time? So Helga ends up doing the right thing, and she goes down to the information office and gives Mr. Bailey the boots. And Mr. Bailey is, at that point leaving the office to go home to his family, but Helga manages to convince him, come on, it's Christmas. This crazy kid tried everything he can to help somebody who has nobody at Christmas. Please just try. And she manages to convince him, and they go back inside, and it cuts to the next day. The scene cuts to the next day. It's Christmas. Gerald comes over to the boarding house. The boarding house members are all opening Christmas gifts, and everything's all well and good. But Mr. Wynn is just standing by the fireplace all by himself. And, Arnold says, really wish we could have gotten Mr. Wynn the perfect Christmas gift. And at that moment, there's a knock on the door, and Arnold's grandpa answers it. And who does it turn out to be? But it turns out to be Mr. Wynn's daughter, Mai, who is now a grown college-age woman. And Mr. Wynn and his daughter are reunited, and it's very, very happy. It's very emotional. He's like, and Arnold and Gerald are just like, they can't believe it. And they're just like, how did this happen? This is insane. And Gerald and Arnold just, sum it up to, it's a Christmas miracle. And miracles don't have explanations. That's why they're miracles. And then the last shot of the show is Helga standing outside the boarding house, looking in at the happy scene and wishing Arnold a Merry Christmas. And it's very emotional. It's very sweet. And to me, it's definitely one of the more emotionally charging Christmas episodes within the Nickelodeon roster, or even just the children's television kind of roster. a lot of great '90s cartoons that really push a lot of boundaries with teaching kids about certain subjects, and this episode was definitely one of them. Let's see. So, kind of the backstory to this episode. The idea for the episode came from writer Steve Viskin, who wanted to combine the idea of the backstory of Mr. Wynn with the theme of Christmas. And so they decided, the Vietnam War is a very tough subject, especially to teach to an audience that's clearly mostly below the age of 10. Maybe 12. Let's push it to like 13. An audience that's largely below the age of 13 watching this channel and these shows. In order to properly come up with the authentic backstory and make sure it was as realistic and authentic to the story of Vietnam as possible, they enlist the help of the guy who voices Mr. Wynn, an actor by the name of Bowen Coleman, who appeared in many other TV shows and movies, including one of the Rambo movies. And who himself is also a native Vietnamese man and was in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. So this episode is very, very just unique. For not only teaching the children about the Vietnam War without even naming the war. Because, again, like I mentioned earlier, like, Mr. Wynn does not mention the name of his home country. He just names the country I'm from or my home country. But clearly through everything depicted in the flashbacks, the villages, the tanks and soldiers and helicopters, and especially at the end, the helicopter on top of a building, it's all a depiction. It's all a clear depiction of the Vietnam War and many of the truthful aspects of the war. For instance, like when I first saw this episode, like the part of the flashback scene where Mr. Wynn and his daughter are on top of a skyscraper where a helicopter is taking off from, that is a depiction of the famous photo from 22 Gia Long Street during the fall of Saigon, which, if you go online, is one of the famous photos of the fall of Saigon, featuring showing a helicopter on top of a residential building in Saigon, loading many Vietnamese people, as many residents of Saigon into the helicopter as possible. It's a very powerful looking photo, so it was really cool how Nickelodeon was able to animate some of that stuff to teach the kids. And they didn't even mention any names. They mentioned no names of the country, the war, they didn't even mention, like, America. They just mentioned, like, here. Mr. Wynn just mentioned, like, the soldier told me to come here to this city. But if you watch the episode, it's just it's just very clear that it's all about Vietnam. But what's also, so not only is it significant for teaching the kids about the war, but it's also told completely from the aspect of a Vietnamese person and not from the American side of the war. There are many great American movies. Apocalypse Now, Platoon, and Full Metal Jacket, to name a few, about that depict the American experience of the Vietnam War, and living here in America. That's what you would hear about. But this episode just was able to tell a story from the other side, from the people whose country was really fucked fucking destroyed. Many parts of it destroyed. In this crazy, insane war. Like, the Vietnam War is definitely by far, like, there was no, it was just a complete shit show, nonsense, meaningless war. Still to this day, like, I know this is kind of like an ignorant statement to say, but like, someone try and think of a reason. Try and think of an actual legit reason why we needed to be there and why that war needed to exist. And, I'm an idiot. I know, I try to learn about history. I do my best at times. But I'm an idiot. But truly tell me a reason for that war. Tell me a legit reason for the Vietnam War. It's hard. It's really hard. So Bao and Coleman really worked with the writers to be able to come up with the proper story. And the process of getting this episode made, approved by the studio, was, quote, an uphill battle because the studio felt very nervous about the adult themes of the episode. The adult themes of the episode, the Vietnam War setting, and also the backstory of Mr. Huynh giving up his infant daughter to departing soldiers. The studio is very worried that this is way too heavy-handed subject for children to handle. But they approved it and went through with production, and, we have the episode for, episode is the better part of almost 30 years old, man. It's pretty nuts. Pretty nuts. So Coleman worked with Bartlett on the script, wanting to depict the war in a very poetic way, quote unquote. A lot of the information I got about the backstory of this episode and the making of this came from this really great article run by, I think it was NBC News. It was like a couple of years ago. Some reporter for NBC wrote this article about like the 20th anniversary of the episode or something like that. Or 25th anniversary, something like that. 20th, 25th anniversary of the episode, something like that. The music, during the flashback sequence, there is accompanying music, both orchestrational kind of music, traditional orchestrational music, and also a sequence of guitar riffs, which were composed by a music composer named Jim Lang. And if you listen to the guitar riffs, they're very distinctive sounding riffs, which, if you know about rock music, is very much similar to the sounds of popular rock music during the late 60s, early 70s, which was psychedelic and hard rock. So that kind of guitar riff during the Vietnam sequence, it was also an ode to the great music of the time, and of a lot of the music the American soldiers were playing during the wartime, during their very unfortunate tours in Vietnam. This episode gained significant praise, critical praise, for being one of the first instances in American TV where the perspective of the Vietnam War is being told from the Vietnamese perspective. I'm just going through my notes here, people. Let's see. It was also praised for how it portrayed the war in an effective manner for children, which is really true. The flashback sequence of the war gave you the full scope and picture of that the setting was clearly in peril and in a terrible crisis and a terrible war. But they didn't need to show, soldiers shooting people. They didn't need to show, people dying, laying bloody in the streets or the jungle or whatever like that. They told it in a way that showed no violence, none of that, because, let's face it. If this was like, a show aimed for teenagers and adults, yes, obviously then the violence would be there. But this was aimed for children and trying to educate children about it, and you don't need to you can educate them in truthful ways without needing to show them, stuff that's probably not appropriate for them to see. I don't think, I've watched Platoon and Apocalypse Now so many times during my 20s. And there's so many atrocities and horrible, bloody deaths in those movies. Yeah, children did not need to see that in a backstory for this Hey Arnold episode. So that's all I really have on this. When I was thinking of great Christmas episodes to pick to talk about in the podcast, I was thinking about just doing like a fun, silly one. There's so many episodes, so many of the ones I grew up with on Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network are really great and fun, but just pretty much all of them just focus on like the classic children kind of aspects of Christmas, which are presents and family and caring and giving and all that stuff. This one was just so, definitely had all those themes, but also then took a complete left turn and like, let's also teach kids about the horrific truths and consequences of war, which is just a pretty baller move on animators and writers to be able to try and do. And shout out to Nickelodeon for, at the time, approving this episode, because that probably wasn't an easy decision, given, like, they were thinking, like, oh, there might be a lot of backlash from parents and shit like that, and, this still is a brand new show in its first season, so, took a big risk, and it paid off really well, and truly, Arnold's Christmas is one of the best, children's Christmas podcast, not podcast, is there a children's podcast? There's gotta be podcasts out there literally aimed just for kids at this point. That's gotta be true. God, that'd be so fucking creepy. That'd be so weird. Maybe a talk for another day. Probably not on this podcast. That's something Chris Hansen, I think, would need to deal with. Alright, so that's all I really have. I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas. I hope you all are having a wonderful, fun holiday. This was the last episode of 2023. My goal for the next year is to continue doing this podcast more and more. This podcast will never grow unless I keep trying to do more episodes and keep trying to learn more about how to properly do a podcast. I think I'm doing okay. I think I'm doing better than some people. I am a stand-up comedian. I'm just an open mic comedian at this point. I'm not a paid comedian. But, at least, I'm trying something different. Not like a lot of comedians. You know what? Why am I talking shit? I shouldn't talk shit. I like comedians. Comedian podcasts are great. All of them. Why is my podcast any different? Why do I think my podcast is better than other podcasts out there? Well, because I don't know. Ego, belief, a desire to be liked, so many things. All right, folks, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you for listening and have a great Merry Christmas.